See the man who won't stay for your meal, getting all the decent pie for your wife. Everybody wanna know how it feels.
So we need to understand the law of contract and its essentials. Law of contract क्या होता है and what are the essentials of a valid contract? This is going to be our topic. First of all, what is a law of contract? The law of contract is related to all the contracts and all the types of contracts. किसी किस्म का भी जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होगा वो लॉ ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट से आप डिराइव करोगे कि उस पे कौन से लॉज इंप्लीमेंट होते हैं. नाउ व्हाई डू वी नीड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स एंड क्या चीज ये करता है? सारे बिजनेसेस ट्रांजैक्शंस करते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल आप बाइंग करते हैं, सेलिंग करते हैं, they involve transactions. Some involve financial transactions, some transactions of goods and services and other things. And for that, for those transactions, you need to make the contract. We'll understand कि contract exactly क्या होता है. But जब आपको transactions करनी होती हैं, तो फिर आपको contract करना होता है. And contract क्यों करना होता है? Because आप अगर किसी सप्लायर से कोई रिटेलर कोई चीज मंगवा रहा है और रिटेलर आगे कस्टमर को सेल कर रहा है, तो ये कई दफा क्रेडिट पे काम हो रहा होता है, कई दफा ये काम क्रेडिट पे हो रहा होता है. यू नीड टू हैव सम काइंड ऑफ ट्रस्ट एंड सम काइंड ऑफ सिक्योरिटी कि आपकी जो ट्रांजैक्शंस हो रही हैं दे आर सिक्योर, दे आर फाइन, नोबडी इज गोइंग टू रन अवे विद योर मनी और विद योर गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज. So you need to have some kind of guarantee or some kind of protection for all of your transactions. So first we'll define and try and understand what is contract. So a contract is a written or spoken agreement which is enforceable by law. Written or spoken. So looking at this definition, we have two important elements. First, that contracts are agreements. Second, that they are enforceable by law. So we'll have to discuss agreement and enforceable one by one. So first, agreement. What is an agreement? Agreement is actually a promise for consideration. A promise that can form consideration. And what is a consideration? Something to do. So let's suppose if a person is saying that I want to sell a house to you for 10 million rupees. So selling of house is being promised by person A, and 10 million is being promised by person B. So one person will sell a house for 10 million. Two people are actually making the promise to each other for doing something. And what are the promises? One is going to give a house, sell a house, the other is going to give 10 million. So when these promises are being made, this will be known as agreement. So you can say promise plus promise is equal to agreement. Now, the second thing is more important. Enforceable by law. जरा suppose करें कि आप किसी को शादी पे बुलाते हैं एंड आप उनसे कहते हैं कि हम आपको बहुत अच्छा खाना खिलाएंगे. प्रॉमिस करते हैं उनके साथ उनको बहुत अच्छा खाना खिलाएंगे. फूड आपने प्रॉमिस कर लिया और वो बंदा आपसे प्रॉमिस करता है कि ठीक है खाना अच्छा होगा तो मैं आपको 5,000 रुपीज जो है वो दे के जाऊंगा. नाउ सपोज आता ही नहीं है आपकी शादी पे, जो प्रॉमिस किया था वो फुलफिल नहीं किया, या आता है तो आप उसको खाना अच्छा नहीं खिलाते, या खाना अच्छा खिला देते हैं तो वो 5,000 की बजाय 1,000 रुपीज दे जाता है. Although you people made the promise, and किसी ने भी अगर फुलफिल नहीं किया तो can we sue this person? No. So no, we cannot sue this person based on the promises that he or she made. That means not all the agreements that we make in life have the legal obligation. Some have the social obligation. But on the other hand, if you go to a restaurant and you have some food, and if you do not pay them, can they sue you? Yes. They're going to sue you for not doing the payment. Anything that you do, any promises that you're making, any agreements that you're making which are enforceable by law are known as the contracts. So let's look at these examples. If you invite a friend on dinner and he does not show up, you cannot ask the court to punish him. But if you have purchased something and did not pay the shopkeeper can sue you and the court is going to recognize it. Why it is going to recognize? Because it has the legal obligation enforceable by law, right? Here we can say that promise plus promise is equal to an agreement. Two people when making promises to each other for something for some consideration is equal to agreement. Agreement plus legal obligation or enforceable by law is equal to a contract. Not all agreements are having legal obligation. Some have social obligation and some have legal obligation. Agreements which have legal obligation are known as the contracts. Some more concepts related to the contract. Meeting of minds. When the two parties to a contract both have the same understanding of the terms of the agreement, the same understanding means that the minds are actually meeting. Both the parties are thinking in the same direction, in the same way. They have the same concept. They understand the terms and conditions exactly the same. Now, we can discuss the example. There would not be a meeting of minds if the bill buyer said, I'll buy all your stock, and he meant shares in corporation, and Sam seller said, I'll sell all my stock to you, meaning the cattle. So एक stock को share समझ रहा है, एक stock को cattle समझ रहा है. There is a contradiction. Actually, the mind is not meeting. If this is the case, or any case like this, it will be violating the meetings of mind. Then based on what we've studied, all contracts are agreements, but not all agreements are necessarily contracts, because agreements may have social obligation which are not equal to contract, but agreement plus legal obligation is equal to a contract. So for a contract to be a contract, it must be an agreement. This is one of the essential elements, and it must be having a legal obligation. But for an agreement to be an agreement, it doesn't necessarily have to be having the legal obligation. Obligation भी हो सकती है. That is why we can say all contracts are agreements, but not all agreements are necessarily contracts. An agreement which gives rise to social obligation is not a contract. An agreement may be a social agreement or a legal agreement. So if it is a legal agreement, it is going to be known as the contract. And if it has the social obligation, it will be known as simple agreement or social agreement, not the legal agreement. An example is still the same. If A invites B to the dinner and B accepts the invitation, it's a social agreement. It's a social obligation. So this is about the main theme of the law of contract. Further, we'll have to discuss the essentials of the contract.